Okay, here we go. Here's our first question that we have to do as a word problem, or I like to call practical application question. If you're stuck on practical application questions and you don't know how to do it, folks, I suggest go back to the first part of this unit and watch those podcasts again on how to set things up. But if you're comfortable, let's go with it. First off, we got a guy named Wade. He's receiving and sending text messages. So if you think about it, when he receives, we'll call it R. When he sends, we'll call it S. And if you look, Wayne received and sent 60 text messages on his cell phone in one weekend. Holy, Mr. Popular. Wow. Okay, so he received and sent 60 messages. There's our first equation. Well, that was easy. Okay, let's look at the rest of this and see if everything else falls into place here. He sent 10 more messages than he received. So he sent 10 more than he received. Oh, well, there's our second equation, just by writing it out like that. So we're going to have to graph this, and we're going to solve this graphically. All right, how do we do this? Well, I've got my beautiful equation right here, or I should say my beautiful graph right here. There's my two equations sitting there. You have to decide which axis now is going to be your R axis and your S axis, because if you think about it here, we have no X's and Y's. So how are we going to do this? Well, real simple. Look up here. How are we going to graph this? Are we going to graph this y equals mx plus b? Or are we going to graph this intercept method? How are we going to do this? Well, look, this is already set up. It's y equals to mx plus b right there. So you know what? I would say that my s here would be my y-axis right there. That's my y equals mx plus b right there. So that must mean that my R has to be my x-axis. Okay, so I'm going to label that right down here. There's my R. And if you read this, it says, hint, use x and y's by 5s. Boy, I tell you, if you went by 1s, this graph would be huge, and it'd be just impossible. So we're going to do this by 5s. Okay, so here we go. 5, 10, 15, 20. There's 20. 25, 30, 35, 40. There's 40. 45, 50, 55, 60, and I don't need to go past that because, of course, he sent 60 messages and received 60 messages. I'm just going to leave it like that at 60. So I'm going to do the same thing here. Here we go. 5, 10, 15, and there's 20 right about there, okay? Oops, yeah, that looks about 20. 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, there's 40, okay? 45, 50, 55, 60, there's 60, and that's good enough, okay? So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 45, 50, 55, wait a second, 60, yeah, there it is. That looks perfect, awesome, we should be good to go. Now, what I'm going to do here then is I want to look at this particular graph and say, okay, who am I going to do, which one of these things am I going to do first? Let's do this one. Let's do the y equals mx plus b first. Here's an s equals to, and I'm going to rewrite it like y equals mx plus b. So here's my r plus 10, which means, look at that. There's my intercept at 10, and my slope is 1 over 1. Well, oh my goodness, let me show you something on this graph. Here's my 10, so 5, 10. There's 10 right there. Am I going to go up 1 and over 1? That's going to be so tiny, I'm going to be really, really inaccurate. Well, the cool thing about this is think about equivalent fractions. This is the same as saying 5 over 5, or 10 over 10, or 20 over 20. So you can go up by as much as you want. I'm going to go up by 10. Why not? Look, I'm at 10 right now. I'm going to go 5, 10 up. That means I'm going to go 5, 10 over. And I'm going to have a beautiful graph that's going to go out like that. Beautiful. But I got a question for you. Why did I start here? Why didn't I go all the way out here? And think about it. If I had my x-axis going out here, it'd be great, right? Well, no, because think about what that means. When you're in this area here, that means you've received negative texts. How can you get a negative text? That's ridiculous. And you sent, because this is now the send, you've sent negative texts. impossible. So if you think about it, this entire graph has to be limited to the first quadrant. Your domain and range must be in this quadrant here because of the simple fact that this has to be positive range, positive read messages or received messages, and positive sent messages. So, moral of the story, be positive when you're sending text messages. Woohoo! Anyways, let's go to the next one. Here we go. Enough with the corny jokes there. Okay, here it is. Check this out. How would you do this one? I would do that the intercept method. Why? Because look how simple this is as an intercept. Oh my goodness, you're just going to die laughing. Watch. Find the R-intercept. That, you know, is when S equals to 0. So if you make this 0, look what you got. R equals to 60. Okay? Oops, S equals to 0. Here, I'm redoing this. Sorry about that. S equals to 0. Look at that. R equals to 60. Really easy. Look at this. We'll do it again. We'll try not to mess up this time. S intercept, you know, is when R equals to 0. So if R is equal to 0, S equals to 60. Look at that. So your two intersects are 60 and 60. There's one right there, and there's one right there. And it's really easy now to see that, oh my goodness, we're going to have a really nice intersect right about, look at this. I'm going to try to do this the best I can. Right about, looks like about there. So if you think about it, our intersect should have actually been about there. Look at this. There's our intersect at about 25, well, 25, 30. Looks like 25, 30 or 25, 35, somewhere in there. It's going to be really quite nice to have that. Again, it's not perfect, and the reason why it's not perfect is simply because it's graphing. And look how ugly my actual line is. Now, I went out and did this mathematically, and I found out my intersects to actually be the number received. He got 25. The number that he sent was actually 35. So if you look at that, look how close we were. But again, because we're graphing, we're not 100% accurate. That's the thing to remember. Best way to do this is going to be algebra.